Tonight, Scotland unites against violence on the streets. As the First Minister meets faith group and political leaders, some communities are living in fear of what might happen.
There is absolutely no place for conflict of this type within our society, and our communities should be peaceful places for everybody.
Also making the headlines, another name in the frame to lead the Scottish Conservatives. Murdo Fraser becomes the sixth candidate looking to replace Douglas Ross. A ticking time bomb could we be set for an increase in ticks if temperatures rise. And in sport, Dessers' delight, Philippe Clement heaps praise on his striker after a dramatic Champions League equaliser. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The leaders of Scotland's political parties have united to declare there is no place for violent conduct on our streets. They've been meeting on the day jail terms started to be handed out to some of those involved in violence in England. The First Minister also met leaders of faith groups and organisations supporting refugees. One told us asylum seekers are living in fear of what could happen. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
It's been a normal afternoon in Glasgow's George Square, those in the city centre just getting on with their day. But many had feared a very different picture. A number of workplaces round here, including the public sector watchdog Audit Scotland, sent staff home, claiming they'd received warnings of far-right protests in the area. Police Scotland said there was no specific intelligence to back that up. But more widely, information is constantly being monitored and assessed.
It's really important that they don't speculate and don't react to speculation. As I've said in previous days, you know that internet chatter can be harmful, and I'm certainly not going to comment on any speculation or vague internet traffic that talk about protests across the country.
Some of the violence in England has seen hotels housing asylum seekers targeted and set on fire. The Scottish Refugee Council says that's left people here worried for their safety.
Our helpline comes up with constant fear of people living in asylum accommodation, not knowing what will happen to them. We want to make sure that people feel safe when they are going through the complexity of the asylum system. These people already carry deep trauma, and I think we don't want them to be re-traumatised.
We have to work together and to support the communities of Scotland where all are welcome, that nobody is othered. And it's our commitment as the church to ensure that we support our neighbours, for we are all called to love one another, and that is at the heart of who we are.
In recent days, we've heard calls for politicians to be more mindful of their language and the role it can play in escalating tensions. This afternoon, all of Scotland's political party leaders put on a united message against those who seek to cause violence and division. The First Minister and his opposition counterparts, together with senior police officers, met this afternoon with a determination to encourage calm.
I'm pleased that the political leaders of Scotland have come together this afternoon to make it abundantly clear that we believe there is absolutely no place for conflict of this type within our society, and our communities should be peaceful places for everybody.
I think it's really important that right across the political divide and right across all our communities we send a unified message that there is no place for far-right thuggery, violence, racism, Islamophobia or any other form of prejudice or hate on our streets.
Today in Liverpool, 3 men were jailed for their part in violent disorder in the city over recent days. Their cases were fast-tracked amid fears of more unrest to come. So far, we haven't had widespread scenes like this in Scotland. Police say there's no complacency and they're ready for a robust response if the worst does happen. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
The Scottish Conservatives have let Scottish voters down, according to Murdo Fraser. The party's longest-serving MSP is the latest to join the race to lead his party. He's promising real change and pledging to give the Tories a distinctive Scottish voice. Our political editor Colin Mackay is watching the leadership contest. So Colin, what have the candidates been saying?
Well, this is a damning critique of his own party from Murdo Fraser. He says they've let their members down and they've let the voters down. He says Boris Johnson let them down over Partygate. Liz Truss let them down over her mini-budget. Rishi Sunak let them down over D-Day. And he says that Douglas Ross let them down throughout the general election. Now, Murdo Fraser has stood for the leadership before. He lost to Ruth Davidson. Then he wanted to split the Scottish Conservatives from the UK party. He says he's changed his mind now. He says they still need to change, they just don't need to split anymore.
We face a challenge on both flanks. We face a challenge from Labour, who are taking back some of the voters we won from them when Ruth Davidson was leader, and we face a challenge from Reform on the other flank, who are looking to be a force in Scotland. What we have to do is forge a new identity for this party as a moderate centre-right party speaking with a distinctive Scottish voice.
We need to be taking a new message, a positive message, a visionary message to the people of Scotland for 2026, and I think continuity is not going to cut it.
Liam Kerr there, another of the 6 candidates standing for the Conservative leadership. A fifth of Conservative MSPs are now going for it. Alongside those two are Megan Gallagher, Russell Finlay, Jamie Green and Brian Whittle. And they have until the 22nd of August to get the support of 100 party members to make the final ballot paper. We'll have a special Scotland Tonight next month with a hustings with all the surviving candidates. Remember, that was the hustings, an SNP hustings during their leadership contest last year that gave us some of the key moments of that contest. In fact, you just heard Liam Kerr quoting from it, continuity won't cut it. But some close to the party don't think that all 6 candidates will last the pace.
I don't think all 6 will go the distance. I think by the end of it, a couple have dropped out and probably backing perhaps people they think will do a bit of a stronger job than they would.
Do you think this is going to be a difficult contest? A controversial contest with blue on blue in the party?
Yeah, there's no escaping that. All party leadership contests have gone that way. If you look at Labour ones and SNP ones of late, they can get a bit dirty, a bit nasty. We've already seen a bit of tension, I guess, between some of the candidates, and it's not even started yet, so I think that's inescapable.
And Colin, away from the Conservative leadership contest, council bin strikes due next week. Any movement on that?
They could already be underway by this time next week, but following talks with Finance Secretary Shona Robison last week, there is a bit more money and a new pay offer to be made. The next stage is informal talks with the trade unions. Some of those are happening right now. They're expected to last into tomorrow before a possible deal goes to council leaders on Friday. Now, nobody wants a bin strike. Nobody wants school strikes, and that would be what would potentially come after the bin strikes, because this is about all council workers. But this feels like a last chance to avoid all of that.
Colin at Holyrood, thank you. Scotland could face an infestation of ticks over the next 60 years due to climate change. Researchers at the University of Stirling have used computer modelling to predict how numbers of the creatures will change, and they're predicting if global temperatures rise, numbers could double. Courtney Cameron reports.
They are tiny insects those who love walking know to look out for at this time of year. But the number of them could rise rapidly over the next few decades. Research is showing climate change is set to affect tick numbers, and some believe they're already a serious problem.
If you're a hill walker, you are aware of it, certainly in Scotland.
We went in the long grass and got some ticks on us.
Yeah, you found it the next morning, didn't you?
Yeah.
We had checked over me, but we missed it. And they're very small, so they're very easy to miss.
I've seen some documentaries, I've read up as much, seen some. It's pretty dangerous, actually.
Talk of a surge in ticks is also sparking worries about increases in Lyme disease cases. Pauline contracted the bacterial infection in 1989 from a tick bite and says her life has never been the same since.
Lyme disease can alter your life, completely life altering, can change your energy levels. Even the way I thought changed. I was struggling with words. The breathing every time I walked along a corridor. I could hardly breathe. I was panting. And even when I told people what I had, nobody believed it.
Researchers are predicting by 2080, if global temperatures were to rise by 1 degree, the prevalence of ticks across Scotland could increase by a quarter. But if temperatures were to rise by just 4 degrees, those figures could double.
So in woodlands, for example, there's already quite a lot of ticks. They will, as temperatures increase, continue to increase. There will be more ticks. And that's because there's plenty of hosts around for them to feed. Whereas in some regions, some areas like bog lands, there's not many ticks, and there still wouldn't be many ticks because although the climate's better for them, there aren't enough hosts for them to feed on.
Researchers say while the study is focused on ticks in Scotland, their model could be applied around the world. Courtney Cameron, STV News, Glasgow.
To other stories, and a man murdered his partner of 35 years after he became convinced she was having an affair with one of his sons. Colin Kennedy was found guilty of killing Catherine Stewart in a frenzied attack at their home in Airdrie in July 2021. The 63-year-old claimed he was mentally ill at the time, but Kennedy was jailed for life and sentenced to at least 25 years in prison. A man accused of masterminding an international drug smuggling ring with cocaine allegedly hidden in imported fruit has blamed 2 other men currently behind bars. James Stevenson lodged a special defence of incrimination at the start of the trial at the High Court in Glasgow. He and 5 others deny all the charges against them. Prosecutors claim the operation spanned the UK, Spain, Ecuador and Abu Dhabi. The trial has been adjourned until later this month. All CalMac services between Mallig and Loch Boisdale have been cancelled until Saturday after a fire on board the route's main vessel. MV Lord of the Isles was mid-journey yesterday when the fire started. It was extinguished quickly but caused the ferry's main engine to fail, and it was diverted to the nearest port. CalMac says it's investigating the incident. The parcel delivery service Every has launched a recruitment drive in Scotland as it looks to tackle the lack of courier drivers. The low numbers mean online shoppers in some parts of the country have been left with a 50-mile round trip to collect their own parcels. Ollie Dickinson has more.
The rise in online shopping means doorstep delivery is something we've all grown used to. But for some living on Skye, changes from a national courier service have left them with a 50-mile round trip to collect their parcels.
We got an email from Every, the company Every, to say to us, thank you for choosing for your parcel to be sent to one of our local collection hubs, which wasn't an option for us. It's what they have unilaterally chosen to do. Well, it's a bit annoying when you've chosen and paid for home delivery.
Every have apologised, saying the previous home delivery provider had ceased operating. It's launched a recruitment campaign to plug the gaps. Enter Tony. He, along with his wife Lorraine, took up work as a delivery team after COVID left them unable to continue in their previous jobs as landscapers. The pair have become well-known faces across their route in Troon.
We can work at it within the parameters of our physical capabilities, so that's became a good option for us. It's good. It's a good job. It can be challenging. It's quite a sociable job, but the main thing is we can work together.
Just suited us. I love driving, so that suits me. Tony's just a bit more fitter and active than me, so he can do all the running about, and I can do all the driving and organise the parcels.
During its busiest periods, the depot he works from can see as many as 11,000 parcels sorted and distributed each day. However, last year, one MP questioned if the company should be investigated over the number of customer service complaints it was receiving.
We have a large amount of deliveries on the road that take a lot of care and effort into what they do. As I mentioned previously, they like to take responsibility for the work that they do because these people are their customers. And some of these people are servicing the areas 6 days a week. So they really get to build that kind of trust. As I say, it is the minority that kind of spoils it for the masses.
The company hopes to deliver 550 new jobs in Scotland as part of the 9,000 being created nationwide. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Emergency measures to release hundreds of Scotland's prisoners in short-term sentences has been welcomed by a group of academics and musicians working in the justice system. A Giant on the Bridge is a new theatre event at this year's Fringe, which explores the challenges of coming home from prison. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
Panic attack, I can't breathe, gasping in our wheeze. The real-life experiences of those affected by Scotland's justice system, told through song. A Giant on the Bridge is a new gig theatre event at this year's Fringe, which explores what it's like to come home after prison. It was born out of a project called Distant Voices, where professional musicians team up with people connected to the justice system to create songs.
We would try and go in with a bit of a theme as a bit of a steer for anyone that didn't have an idea of what they might like to write about. So many of the people had never done any creative writing before, let alone songwriting. We'd often deal with people who really wanted to get a lot of the more difficult things kind of off their chest, which I think art is, in particular, is such an important vehicle for.
The project and charity Vox Liminis aims to change the conversation around prisons.
I think this debate is quite polarising and people often get into political argy-bargy about it. But when you listen to a song, you're in a different kind of way of receiving things. There are thousands of people who come out of prison every year and even more thousands of people who have been connected to that experience. So it is close to home for a lot of people, but for people who've never thought about it before, they feel like it's a step into a world that they hadn't considered before.
Emergency measures are currently in place to release more than 500 prisoners early in a bid to reduce overcrowding in our jails. Despite concern from victims groups, academics here say the Scottish Government has made the right move.
Overcrowded prisons cannot deliver on rehabilitation and reintegration. So I think sometimes people think we're making society safer by putting people away, but when we do that too much, and do it with the wrong people for the wrong length of time, we are storing up problems for ourselves. So a former prisoner once said to me that the second sentence is harder than the first, and he meant the sentence that you serve after you're released.
A Giant on the Bridge is on until the 18th of August at Assembly Roxy Central. Laura Alderman, STV News, Edinburgh.
The stories in the West, and an iconic building in Glasgow is set to be demolished later this year. The City Council has served a dangerous building notice to the owners of the O2 ABC in Sauchiehall Street. The former cinema and nightclub has lain derelict since the Glasgow School of Art fire in 2018. Police are treating a fire at an historic tenement in Glasgow as deliberate. Firefighters were called to Carlton Place on Monday night after the property went up in flames for the second time this year. The building was previously the Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice, but has lain empty since also 2018. Plans to cut school bus services in South Lanarkshire have been approved despite objections from parents. Councillors have agreed to alter the qualifying distance of free secondary school transport in an effort to ease financial pressures. From August of next year, pupils must live within 2 miles of their catchment school to receive free transport. Artists from the Caribbean and African diaspora are being given the opportunity to stay and work at Dumfries House in Ayrshire as part of a creative partnership with the King's Foundation. 8 applicants will take up residencies to hone their crafts. Selena Jackson reports.
It's quite the backdrop to get the creative juices flowing. And over the next few months, 8 artists staying in these cottages at Dumfries House will be hoping to take inspiration from their surroundings.
So this is truly a unique environment, and it's not only a unique environment, it's also a unique opportunity. It allows the artist to be in a beautiful space, it allows the artist to grow, it allows the artist to learn.
The programme's been set up by English rugby internationalist Maro Itoje, who wanted to give artists from African and Caribbean backgrounds a space to work on their skills.
I couldn't find any African art in London, and the places I did find were completely out of my price range. So then when I went back to Lagos, I saw the art there and I was taken aback, the colour, the vibrancy, and ever since then it's been a bit of a love affair.
Maro joined forces with the King's Foundation to bring his vision to life, and they identified Dumfries House as the perfect location.
There aren't too many places, I think, like Dumfries House in that
They're both doing a huge amount of outreach into the community, but they're also bringing the community in and engaging the community in a really meaningful, hands-on way with what we offer on site. And so I think having the opportunity for these artists to not just be based here, but to engage directly with the community and be a part of that community is something that I hope will be something that the community really benefit from and the artists themselves really benefit from.
The artists will have access to purpose-built studios throughout their stay. Kelly, who specialises in making bronze sculptures, says it'll be a great chance to introduce his creations to new people.
I've always said the voice of the artist becomes very, very powerful when you connect with your audience. So if I'm based here in Nigeria, my audience is primarily around Nigeria. So having this residency program, now I'm launching it to the UK audience. It's something amazing for me, really.
It'll be some time until we find out just how the residency shapes the artist's work, but the Ayrshire countryside is bound to offer some unique inspiration. Selena Jackson, STV News, Cumnock.
Let's go to Edinburgh now, where Jamie has the sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Good evening. Philippe Clement praised striker Cyril Dessers after his last gasp equaliser put Rangers firmly in the hunt for the Champions League playoff round in last night's qualifying match against Dynamo Kiev. Clement wants the Rangers fans to roar them to victory in next week's return leg at Hampden.
Saluting a never-say-die performance, Rangers took a big step towards the Champions League playoffs when Cyril Dessers struck late in Poland. Philippe Clement believes his side is only starting to show its potential after a gutsy display against Ukraine's Dynamo Kiev. Vladislav Vanat was denied the opening goal by the offside flag before Ross McCausland struck the woodwork. But it was the Ukrainians who struck first as captain Andrei Yarmolenko finished from close range before half-time. Rangers went on the hunt for a leveller after the break as Dessers forced a good save from Georgi Bushchan. As it looked like they may have to settle for taking a one-goal deficit back to Glasgow for next week's return leg, Rangers produced a sweeping attack which was finished by Dessers with the final kick of the game. The Nigerian earned the praise of his manager, who's now calling for supporters to lift the roof off their temporary Hampden home to finish the job and take their place against either Red Bull Salzburg or FC Twente in the Champions League playoff. Meanwhile, ahead of their Conference League qualifier against SK Brann, St Mirren boss Stephen Robinson believes they can cause an upset.
We believe we can continue on in the competition. So, yeah, the pressure's not on us, the pressure will be on Brann. They'll be expected to come here and win comfortably, I would imagine. But we don't approach games like that. You know, it's no game's a free game or a free hit, as people call it. We want to win the game. We'll certainly set out to win the game, and we'll do what we do, but we have to do it better.
Kilmarnock also welcome Norwegian opposition to Rugby Park tomorrow, and Derek McInnes wants to see his side concentrate on their own game when they face Tromsø.
We're looking forward to the tie. We've worked extremely hard as a club, and the players have worked extremely hard to get this type of evening, and we're looking forward to it tomorrow. I just want the players to really concentrate on us, give us their best performance individually. And if we can get anywhere near our best team performances we showed last season, we believe it's a game we can win.
Hibs women's defender Poppy Lawson says that new club captain Rachel Boyle is an inspiration to her ahead of the new SWPL campaign. Boyle succeeds Joelle Murray as Hibs skipper, and Lawson says they're ready to make their mark on the league, starting with Sunday's opening match against Partick Thistle.
Smalley's unbelievable to be around. She's, unfortunately suffered her injury, but she's looking good and she'll be back soon. And yeah, to follow in her footsteps is something that I can only dream of. So to have her and Ellis by my side through this season will be great. Last year it was kind of a transition year. There's no hiding that either. And this year now there's no time for transition. I think we're here to stamp our authority on the league, and that's exactly what we're going to try and do.
Just finally, the SFA has announced the appointment of a VAR manager. Former English Premier League referee John Moss will oversee the technology in Scottish football. And that is all of tonight's sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Thanks to Jamie. To the weather now, and here's Sean.
Light winds rolling in from the west. We'll be joined by some very welcomed ice creams. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. My goodness, well, it really hasn't felt like summer at all in the blustery conditions we've had today and those passing showers, especially around the west coast and the Hebrides. Our temperatures and the sunny spells in between the showers about 15 degrees, coming down to 12, 13 in those showers. Add on the effects of wind, not feeling great at all for August. At least most of those showers easing through this evening. Temperatures locally down to about 9 degrees. Now, tomorrow morning, we've got plans early on, not looking too bad. Some sunshine around, especially across lights of Stirlingshire, into Argyll and Bute, Perthshire and the Highlands. But then we'll see cloud moving in from the southwest, outbreaks of rain coming in during the afternoon, and look at the bright colours developing in that rainfall, especially by the time we get to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So the rain that comes in about lunchtime, quite light and patchy, but much more intense late afternoon into the early part of the evening. So some heavy rain to end tomorrow. That clears away. Friday and Saturday, we're right back to where we've been today. Sunshine and blustery showers. Temperatures still on that cool side, about 16 to 18 degrees Celsius at best. Hopefully the showers easing from the south on Saturday, so probably the driest weather later on the day across much of Ayrshire, South Lanarkshire and Dumfries and Galloway. Now the temperatures could get boosted into the low 20s for a time on Sunday, but before you get too excited, the weather's still looking quite changeable. And it looks as if it's short-lived because next week we just return back to cooler conditions and unsettled weather.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
It's just grim, isn't it? Well, this might cheer you up. Finally, beavers released earlier this year have given birth to 2 kits, making them the first wild-born beavers in the Cairngorms in more than 400 years. The kits were born into 2 of 6 family groups released earlier this year in an effort to re-establish the species in the national park. That would seem to be working. From all of us here, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night.